decides Matt's standing in the kind of courtyard outside where all the protesters are, and he hears Fisk in his head, sort of the devil on the shoulder type thing. And you know, the exchange is interesting to me where Fisk is sort of goading Matt. How do you feel about the, like, at a dramatic level, the choice to have Fisk on screen here and like clearly in Matt's head? I guess like I have questions about it from a genre perspective, and I have questions about it from a like, what are we supposed to take as actually happening here? Like, is Matt actually hearing Fisk's voice in his head, or is this sort of a way to demonstrate his internal monologue or something?
Right, the latter. It's like a symbolic dramatization of Matt's conscience, which is, yeah, to your point, it is sort of a bit of a left turn in terms of genre. It's something that you wouldn't expect from this show, but I dig it. I think you're already going pretty hard in the religious / mythical themes this season. I think this is kind of a cool little element to add to that.
Right. I want to elaborate a little bit on like why this is such a left-hand turn, because I was thinking about it and I couldn't put my finger on it till you just said what you said, which is it's that the show is deeply concerned with the interior psychology of all of these characters and the drama that produces. And this is a on-screen literal representation of someone's internal psychology, which is something we've never seen before. We have to usually read that between cues or through actions or through what's not said. And this is the first time we've really had someone step into frame and go, this is what this character is thinking. Now, it's important that we get this confirmation because it is the central struggle of the season, the central question that Matt faces. But it is a different way of showing this. You know, you could imagine another scenario. And here's the problem. Here's why I think this happens. I think they've written themselves into a corner because he can't go back home to the church and talk to Sister Maggie and say, hey, I'm thinking about going out there and killing Fisk. That's a non-starter conversation. He's already had this conversation with Father Lantom a dozen times in season 1. So that's a double beat. He can't go to Foggy because Foggy thinks he's dead. He can't go to Karen because Karen thinks he's dead. And also, you know, there's still something between them there that is unresolved. Like, he has no one to go to talk about this. And so the show, without a card to play, has him talk to himself, I guess. Which is like an interesting dramatic choice. I'm with you. I think it's cool. I am given to wonder if there isn't a different decision here that could have been more compelling. I'm not sure what that decision would be.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else either. But I think a result of this decision is maybe it adds to Matt's delusion a bit. Like, you know, he's meant to be a bit off his rocker this season, and I guess, you know, it's not always so easy to identify that if you're from the perspective of the protagonist who's having these conversations with imaginary people.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, I think it would have been funny if like you were from the perspective of someone else for a minute and just hearing Matt talk to himself, and that would like really emphasize how off his rocker he is.
Yeah, that would really put it up there. Oh, it just occurred to me, and Elektra's dead and Stick is dead. So like he really just doesn't, there's just no one.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and you know, it's not just that he's delusional, right? Like, I think when people are delusional, they're dangerous, right?
Right.
And this is a pretty intense conflict that is being set up here between Matt and Fisk. It's not the superhero, I'm going to take him down. It's Matt contemplating whether he's going to kill him or not, which is pretty heavy stuff.
Right.
And the conversations between Matt and imaginary Fisk are, a lot of them is Fisk taunting him. You know, he says stuff like, "Wouldn't it be funny if I ended up saving more people in this city than you ever did. It's personal, vindictive stuff that is going on between these two in his head. Yeah, it's quite dark if you think about it like that, I guess.
Yeah, well, and he brings up the fact that Matt tried to kill himself, you know. And he sort of goes, "Oh, do you think that like God let me out to punish you for trying to kill yourself? Don't think I didn't notice." You know. And it's such a great, you know, it's such a great illustration of the way that like Matt's guilt just is like twisting him into these knots that just seem impossible to undo. And then, I mean, while this is happening, Karen bails up Nadima, basically just yells at him, doesn't really ask him any proper questions, just kind of yells at him for a minute. And this is one of those few times where I'm like, these guys have really interesting like on-screen chemistry. I would have liked to see them maybe interact more, and I hope the season might have them converse more, because I think they would have like an interesting conversation to have, especially Nadim, this like fraught, guarded dude who just has nothing left, and Karen feeling like she has nothing left. That could be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I even think that this little conversation is pretty interesting because they both make really good points. I like how Karen says, you know, Nadim says he has not been released. That's fake news. He's just been moved. And then Karen says, "Oh, what's he having for dinner? The filet mignon or whatever." And then, you know, Nadim retorts back, "Oh, well, you know, you should. He's going to save lives. You write about the 5 cops that got killed moving him, and like, you know, there's no right answer between those two arguments, and there's a lot of that stuff in these
plus
episodes.
Like plus the FBI are fucking with Fisk's food. Like Dex and his friend are messing with Fisk's food constantly, so it's also just an interesting thought there. I also want to put a pin in the idea of, I want to say it now because I want to come back to it in the next episode. I want to pop a pin and put it up on the board. The question of the timing of this season being written and its conception of policing, because there's a lot to kind of dig into in the next episode with a particular scene that I think we can pull a lot out of. And just keeping in mind for anyone who is sort of unaware, this season came out in 2018 in October, and sort of was written in the preceding year and change. So this is peak. This is peak. Like the world is going to go one way or the other with the election. And we obviously went the dark timeline where Trump gets elected. But this is that moment just before everything is on the knife's edge, and before literally the conception of a lot of the core building blocks of what this show, of what this season specifically is about, will change forever in the contemporary understanding of how the world works. So that's just worth putting a pin in. We'll come back to it in the next episode, because there's a scene that I think would never make it into a show now. We'll talk about it when we get to it. Pat doesn't know what I'm talking about, but we'll get there.
I don't.
There you go. That's a little sizzle, Pat. You gotta keep listening to find out what that scene is. You know,
gotta keep him in the dark. Keep him keen.
Treat him without light. Keep him keen. Also, Matt then does a hitman level to get into the hotel.
Yeah, I love this sequence because it's so unique. Of Matt trying to act like a seeing person. There's all these little nuances that he does in trying to act like he isn't blind. And
he gets the pin wrong the first time when he's trying to do the gate. He has to breeze past the guy and just pick the guy's like, "Hey, hand me," or whatever, and he just gives him something.
And he's like trying to like nod to everyone as well. Like he acknowledges them or whatever, and like I'm always thinking as well, like how hard this must be for Charlie Cox to keep your eyes sort of like, you know, kind of more or less locked in one place as you're moving about.
There's conversations later where he's looking someone in the face and he's somehow not making eye contact.
Yeah,
it's so impressive.
That must be so hard.
Yeah, he is honestly the real, like, he's doing a lot of work here to make, like, we've said this about other characters, and particularly the Punisher, when it comes to physicality. This is one of the first times we've seen Matt kind of